Alexithymia. Let's talk about what that is and what the experience can be like. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to the journey of discovery of self, of other, and of realms beyond space and time. My name is Adrian, and I'm so happy to see you here. So the first time I heard this term was from my psychiatrist, and I can remember being like, oh wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if you don't know, alexithymia is the inability to recognize or describe one's own emotions. I know that when my psychiatrist first mentioned this to me, it was because I'd get into session with him and of course be expected to describe how I've been doing over the last month or whatever. And it was always difficult for me to do. It was kind of like my mind would just go blank when asked how I've been. And I'll just say for me personally, I think there's a lot of different things getting in the way of me being able to express it. I mean, for one thing, when it comes to knowing how I feel in the very moment someone asks, if I'm not currently very obviously feeling a strong emotion, I just don't really know. And I need quite a bit of time to process that in order to know. But then also, if someone is asking me to recall my emotions throughout a week or a whole month, it's not really any easier, even though I've technically had time to process, because I also just find it hard to go back if I'm now in a different state of mind. Like at some point during that period of time, I could have felt a lot one day and fully intellectualized that experience and understood where it came from and why I felt the way I did and all that. At that point, it's like, oh, I've already worked through that, and right now it doesn't really feel relevant anymore, and I don't really know how to put myself back into that experience in order to explain it now to someone else. And then in addition to all that, I also tend to feel like I'm just not exactly sure what information someone is looking for. And then sometimes it's really that I try to look back on my recent past and I just don't know where to start. Like that ability to scan for the most relevant information just isn't always there. But anyway, so yeah, my psychiatrist was like, alexithymia, here's some info on that. But also I feel like when it comes to my therapist, I don't necessarily know that that would be something that's obvious to her. Like there are times in therapy where I don't feel like I really talk about anything because I'm just kind of bad at bringing things up on my own. But you know, my therapist has that way of, you know, just asking the right questions to get me to talk about things that I've already processed. So it appears that I'm very self-aware because, I mean, in all honesty, I am. So, you know, maybe some other people that experience alexithymia might have a harder time than I do, because with that sort of definition I gave in the beginning, I feel like it's mainly the second part that describes me, like the part about not knowing how to express it, because it's like in the moment I can clearly tell that I'm feeling like, and I know what that feels like, but to explain it in words initially is just a little bit hard. But also, yes, the not recognizing it at first too. And, you know, maybe that's because I've done a lot of personal work in order to be able to do that. I think probably like the practices of journaling from when I was really young, like for example, of course, probably helped a lot with me being able to understand my emotions after the fact. And yeah, so maybe that's why you could argue that a lot of autistic people, because alexithymia is very common among autistic people, are very introspective because they've had to put a lot of conscious effort into going inward in order to understand their own feelings. I did hear someone make that point recently, but in my opinion, I don't think it's the only reason why we're so introspective. I feel like there's been multiple instances in my life where I might be feeling intense emotions and obviously become overwhelmed. And at times in my life where I had some very close relationships, I've not always been able to communicate verbally what's going on during that time. But usually in those situations where I'm probably just overstimulated, now looking back at it, like by my own emotions, like overstimulated by my own emotions, I don't even feel like I have the ability to speak. And I know that was probably very frustrating in past relationships, meaning close friends or romantic, to be clear, though probably more so specifically like one of my past romantic relationships, because that's just like the closest I've ever been to another person, the most time I've spent around another person for them to like really see me in that way, But because I know when I was younger, I dealt a lot more with very poor mental health, and I was constantly emotionally dysregulated. And looking back, some of those instances were probably even autistic meltdowns or shutdowns when I just wouldn't talk, but someone could still tell something was wrong, because I can remember often, more than anything else, just feeling very overwhelmed. So it's like I'd get to this point of being very visibly upset. So obviously, if this was happening in front of someone I was dating, they would know that I was upset. And like most people would, trying to get me to tell them what was going on. But I wouldn't be able to speak, or if I did speak, it would be very difficult for me to kind of control my tone, and I wouldn't have the words to say what I'm feeling. But in those situations, I'm not really having trouble identifying what I'm feeling. Like, I'm very aware of what I'm feeling in the moment. I'm just not able to communicate that to another person. There aren't any words that are like coming to mind. My only experience is feeling. That's where I need probably a lot more time than maybe most people. I also would find it easier to communicate over text with certain things, because being able to write or type something out just helps me slow down my mind a bit, and also allows me the time that like vocal communication does not. As in person, you're expected to respond to things very quickly, and when you have this sort of delayed processing, it makes it very difficult, and also puts a lot of stress on you to respond, and sometimes that makes it even worse. So it's like, at least if you're in a text conversation with someone, taking more time is a lot more acceptable, because I mean, it's not always like I need a whole day or more to respond, but in most face-to-face interactions, people really aren't that patient with you. You could pause for like 15 seconds and people are like, oh my God, would you hurry up and get to the point? But another way this issue of alexithymia has sort of showed up in my life is responding a lot with, I don't know. My mom absolutely hates that. And a few other people I've encountered in my life have also not really liked that and pointed it out. But like I said, people really never give you the time to process anything. So if I don't know in the moment, that's just what I'm going to say. And something that's frustrating about the situation is people will misunderstand it and think I'm just doing this on purpose to make them mad. They think I do actually know, and I'm just being difficult because I don't want to say what I'm thinking. But the thing is, in that moment, I just actually don't know. I tried to come up with an accurate response. Nothing came to mind, so I said I don't know. And another experience with this has been with certain experiences not knowing how I felt until much later, like several days or weeks later. But here's the thought. What if it's all just because most of the time immediately identifying our feelings would be too overstimulating? Like, what if it's just because we're too busy processing other things going on in our environment at any given moment? I don't know. Just thought. But yeah, so that's all I have to say today. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to give it a like, comment your thoughts down below, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.